year 513 BC, Sun Tzu watched an army of 10,000 men march toward certain death. They were brave, disciplined, well-trained, but they had no strategy. 3 days later, they were annihilated. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat." But here's what most people miss. Sun Tzu wasn't just talking about war. He was talking about life, about power, about the invisible forces that separate those who dominate their reality from those who are dominated by it. 15 centuries later, in Renaissance Italy, another man saw the same pattern. Machiavelli, political strategist, diplomat, advisor to princes. He watched kingdoms rise and fall, leaders come and go, and he noticed something. The ones who survived weren't the kindest, or the most moral, or the most loved. They were the ones who understood the game, the invisible rules, the hidden architecture of power. Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513. But what most don't know is this. He was describing the same principles Sun Tzu taught 2,000 years earlier. Different words, different contexts, different continents, but the same truth, the same 5 pillars, the same laws that govern human nature. And once you understand them, everything changes. You stop being a victim of circumstance. You stop waiting for permission. You stop hoping things will work out, because you realize something. You were always in control. You just didn't know the rules. Tonight we reveal them. This is the Hidden Codex, where ancient wisdom meets modern power. Sun Tzu, philosopher, general, master strategist. Born in ancient China during the Warring States period, a time of chaos, betrayal, constant conflict. He didn't just survive it, he mastered it. His book, The Art of War, became the most influential military text in history. But here's what they don't tell you in business schools. Sun Tzu wasn't writing about armies. He was writing about life. Every principle, every strategy, every tactic applies to relationships, career, personal power. Because Sun Tzu understood something fundamental. Life is war. Not violent, not bloody, but strategic. Every day you're in competition. For resources, for attention, for respect. And most people don't even know they're playing. They think if they're just nice enough, work hard enough, wait long enough, success will come. Sun Tzu would call that delusion. 1,500 years later, Machiavelli learned the same lesson. Niccolò Machiavelli, 1469 to 1527. Italian diplomat, political philosopher, realist. He served the Florentine Republic during its most turbulent years. He watched alliances form and crumble, saw leaders praised one day, executed the next. And he realized something. The rules everyone talks about, honor, loyalty, fairness, they're myths. Useful myths, but myths nonetheless. The real rules, the ones that actually determine who wins, those are hidden, whispered in private, practiced in secret. And Machiavelli had the audacity to write them down. In The Prince, he didn't describe how the world should be. He described how it is. And for that, history called him evil. But here's the truth. Machiavelli wasn't evil. He was honest, brutally, uncomfortably honest. And his honesty revealed the same principles Sun Tzu taught. The 5 pillars of power, the laws of dominance, the hidden architecture of control. Before we go deeper into what these 2 masters discovered, I need to tell you something. This knowledge isn't for everyone. It's for those who were tired of losing games they didn't know they were playing. For those who refuse to be victims. For those ready to see reality as it is, not as they wish it were. If that's you, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications. Because here at the Hidden Codex, we don't sugarcoat the truth. We don't sell you comfortable lies. We give you what works. Ancient strategies, modern applications, real power. And if you find value in this, hit that like button. It tells me you're ready for more. Now let's begin. The first pillar, the foundation of everything. Sun Tzu called it knowing yourself and knowing your enemy. Machiavelli called it understanding human nature, but they meant the same thing. Most people go through life blind. They don't understand their own strengths, their weaknesses, their patterns, and they definitely don't understand others. They project, they assume, they hope, and they get destroyed. Sun Tzu wrote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." But here's what he didn't say out loud. Most people don't want to know themselves. Because real self-knowledge is uncomfortable. It means facing your cowardice, your laziness, your self-deception. It means admitting that the story you tell yourself about who you are might be a lie. Machiavelli saw this too. In The Prince, he wrote, "Men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived." Translation: people deceive themselves first. And once they do, deceiving them becomes easy. So the first pillar is this: ruthless self-awareness. Not the kind where you tell yourself you're basically good or trying your best. The kind where you look at your patterns without mercy. Where did you fail? Why? Where did you succeed? Why? What do you tell yourself to avoid discomfort? What do you refuse to see? Sun Tzu practiced this through meditation and observation. Machiavelli practiced it through studying history. Both arrived at the same conclusion. The man who knows himself controls himself, and the man who controls himself controls his environment. So how does this work in practice today? Let's say you want to negotiate a raise. Most people do this. They walk in, talk about how hard they work, how much they deserve it, how long they've been there, and they get nothing. Why? Because they're focused on themselves, their needs, their feelings, their perspective. But if you understand Sun Tzu and Machiavelli, you do something different. You study your boss first. What does he value? What does he fear? What pressures is he under? What language does he respond to? Then you study yourself. What's your actual value? Not what you think, what you can prove. What's your leverage, your alternatives? What's your fear in this situation, and how is it clouding your judgment? Once you know both, the negotiation becomes simple. You don't beg, you don't demand. You position. You show him why giving you the raise serves his interests. And if it doesn't, you already know your alternative. That's the first pillar. Self-knowledge is a weapon. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "All warfare is based on deception, not violence, not strength. Deception." And Machiavelli echoed this centuries later. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. This is the second pillar, strategic concealment. Now, most people hear this and think it means lying. It doesn't. It means controlling information, controlling perception, controlling what others believe about you, your intentions, your capabilities. Because here's what both masters understood. The moment people know your full hand, you've lost your power. Think about it. Why do you think powerful people rarely speak? Why do they answer questions with questions? Why do they smile without revealing? Because silence is power. Ambiguity is power. The unknown is terrifying. And fear is leverage. Sun Tzu wrote, "Appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak." This isn't about being fake. It's about being strategic. If your enemy thinks you're weak, they attack carelessly. If they think you're strong, they hesitate. Both give you advantage. Machiavelli took this further. He said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But what he meant was this: it's better to be unpredictable than either. Because love makes people complacent. Fear makes people resentful. But unpredictability, that makes people careful. They don't know what you'll do, so they prepare for everything. And preparation is exhausting. So how do you use this today? Let's say you're starting a business. Most people do this. They announce it to everyone. Social media, friends, family. "I'm launching a company. Here's my idea. Here's my plan." And what happens? Opinions flood in. Doubts arise. Competitors take notes. 6 months later, nothing. But if you understand strategic concealment, you do something different. You work in silence. You build in darkness. You test, you iterate, you fail privately. And then, when you're ready, when you have proof, when you have momentum, you emerge. Not with promises, with results. And people don't just respect that. They fear it. Because they didn't see it coming. And what you can't predict, you can't control. Sun Tzu said, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night." Machiavelli said, "Never reveal your full intentions." Both understood. The moment you become predictable, you become controllable. Stay hidden, stay silent, until the moment to strike. The third pillar. This one makes people uncomfortable, because it requires accepting something most refuse to see. Sun Tzu called it adapting to circumstances. Machiavelli called it flexibility of morals. But what they both meant was this: principles are luxuries of the powerful. For everyone else, they're chains. Let me explain. Sun Tzu wrote, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. But to seize that opportunity, you have to be willing to do what others won't. To bend, to shift, to adapt. Not because you're weak, because you're smart." Most people cling to their principles like life rafts. I would never do that. That's beneath me. I have standards. And Sun Tzu would say, congratulations, you have standards, and you lost. Machiavelli was even more direct. In The Prince, he wrote, a wise ruler cannot, nor ought he to, keep faith when such observance may be turned against him. Translation: loyalty is situational. Honesty is tactical. Morality is contextual. Now, before you recoil, understand what he's saying. He's not saying be a monster. He's saying, don't let your virtues become your prison. If being honest in this situation destroys you, lie. If being loyal to this person enslaves you, walk away. If playing fair in this game guarantees your loss, cheat. Not because you're bad, because you're free. And freedom requires adaptability. Here's how this works in real life. Let's say someone at work takes credit for your idea. Most people do this. They complain, they sulk, they tell themselves, I'm better than that, and they get nothing. But if you understand Sun Tzu and Machiavelli, you have options. Option 1, confront them publicly, reclaim your credit, risk conflict. Option 2, let it go, take the lesson, protect your ideas better next time. Option 3, use it. Build a relationship with this person. Make them dependent on your ideas. Then leverage that dependence. The point isn't which option is right. The point is you have options. And the moment you lock yourself into I would never do X, you've eliminated options. You've weakened yourself. Sun Tzu won battles by being unpredictable. Machiavelli advised princes to be flexible. Both understood rigidity is fragility. And in a world that's constantly changing, the flexible survive, the rigid break. So ask yourself, what principles are you clinging to that are actually holding you back? What standards are really just fear? What integrity is really just pride? Because power requires clarity, and clarity requires honesty, even when that honesty is uncomfortable. The fourth pillar. This is where it gets dark. Sun Tzu called it attacking weaknesses. Machiavelli called it exploiting vulnerability. But what they both understood was this: compassion is a luxury you can't afford in battle, and life is battle. Sun Tzu wrote, attack where the enemy is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. In other words, find the weakness, strike there. Not fair, not honorable. Effective, because in real conflict, fair doesn't matter. Winning matters. Machiavelli saw this in politics. He watched leaders try to be loved, try to be fair, try to be kind, and he watched them get destroyed by those willing to be ruthless. So he wrote, one must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Translation: you need cunning to survive the game, and you need ferocity to win it. Now, this doesn't mean be cruel for cruelty's sake. Both Sun Tzu and Machiavelli despised unnecessary violence. But they understood something most modern people refuse to accept. Sometimes the kind thing is not the effective thing. Sometimes mercy prolongs suffering. Sometimes hesitation costs everything. So, when the moment comes, when you see the weakness, the opening, the opportunity, you strike. Without guilt, without hesitation. Because that's what warriors do. And in a competitive world, you're either a warrior or a victim. There is no third option. Here's a modern example. Let's say you're competing for a promotion. You and one other person. They're good, talented, likable. But you notice something. They're disorganized. They miss details. They rely on charm to cover mistakes. Most people would think, well, may the best person win. And they'd lose, because the other person isn't thinking that. They're positioning, they're networking, they're managing perception. But if you understand Sun Tzu and Machiavelli, you do something different. You don't attack them directly, that's messy. You expose the weakness, subtly, strategically. A comment in a meeting. I think we need someone detail-oriented for this role. A document you've prepared that highlights where errors occurred. A pattern you illuminate without naming names. You're not lying, you're not sabotaging. You're simply making the truth visible. And if their weakness costs them the promotion, that's not your fault. That's reality. Sun Tzu would call this winning without fighting. Machiavelli would call it letting nature take its course. Both would say you didn't create their weakness. You just stopped hiding it. And in a world where everyone is competing, hiding others' weaknesses is self-sabotage. So the question becomes, are you willing to see the opening? And are you willing to take it? Most people aren't. And that's why most people lose. Now we arrive at the fifth pillar, the one that ties everything together. Sun Tzu called it timing. Machiavelli called it seizing fortune. But what they both meant was this: all the strategy in the world means nothing if you hesitate. Sun Tzu wrote, "Opportunities multiply as they are seized." Think about that. Opportunity doesn't wait, it compounds. The moment you see it, you take it, because taking it creates more opportunities. But hesitating, analyzing, waiting for the perfect moment, that kills momentum. And momentum is everything. Machiavelli put it even more directly. Fortune is a woman, and it is necessary, if you wish to master her, to conquer her by force. Now, modern sensibilities recoil at that language. But strip away the metaphor, and here's what he's saying. Luck favors the aggressive, not the passive, not the hopeful, not the patient. The aggressive. Those who move when others freeze. Those who decide when others debate. Those who act when others plan. Because here's the secret both masters knew. Perfect timing doesn't exist. There's only good enough timing and decisive action. Most people wait for certainty. They want all the information, all the assurance, all the safety. And while they wait, the opportunity passes to someone bolder, someone faster, someone willing to risk. Sun Tzu understood this in warfare. Battles aren't won by the most prepared. They're won by those who strike at the moment of maximum advantage, even if they're not fully ready, even if there's risk. Because not striking is also a risk, usually a bigger one. Machiavelli saw the same pattern in politics. The princes who succeeded weren't the most careful. They were the most decisive. They saw the opening, they took it, and they dealt with consequences later. So how does this apply to your life right now? Think about the opportunity in front of you. The business idea, the relationship, the move, the risk. You've been thinking about it, analyzing it, waiting for the right time. But here's what Sun Tzu and Machiavelli would tell you. The right time is now. Not because conditions are perfect, but because waiting makes them worse. Every day you hesitate, someone else moves. Every day you plan, the market shifts. Every day you prepare, you lose momentum. And momentum is the difference between success and stagnation. So the fifth pillar is this. When you see the opening, move. Not recklessly, but decisively. Calculate quickly, act immediately, adjust as you go. Because in a world that's constantly changing, the only real mistake is paralysis. Sun Tzu wrote, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious." But notice he said lies in wait, not waits forever. There's a moment, a window, an opening, and when it appears, you strike. Without overthinking, without second guessing, with absolute commitment. Because hesitation isn't caution, it's fear. And fear is the only enemy that guarantees defeat. Let's bring this all together now. Sun Tzu and Machiavelli, two masters, 2,000 years apart, but they saw the same thing. The same patterns, the same laws, the same truth. That power isn't given, it's taken. That success isn't luck, it's strategy. That life isn't fair, it's a game. And the only question is, are you playing to win? Because here's what most people don't realize. You're already in the game. Every interaction, every decision, every day. You're either dominating your reality or being dominated by it. There's no neutral. And the 5 pillars we've covered, they're not optional. They're the rules. Know yourself and your environment deeply, ruthlessly. Conceal your intentions, stay unpredictable, maintain mystery. Adapt without attachment, be flexible, survive by changing. Exploit weakness without mercy, strike when the opening appears. Act decisively, seize timing, move when others freeze. These aren't moral principles. They're operational principles, and they work whether you believe in them or not. The difference is, those who understand them use them intentionally. Those who don't become victims of those who do. Sun Tzu wrote his final lesson near the end of The Art of War. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Machiavelli wrote his final lesson in The Prince. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, for fortune is a woman. Both understood. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It simply is. And those who have it don't talk about it. They live it. So the question now is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you go back to hoping things work out? Will you go back to playing fair in a game where no one else is? Will you go back to waiting for permission, for the right time, for certainty? Or will you do something different? Will you look at your life with new eyes? Will you see the patterns you've been ignoring? Will you recognize the game you've been losing? And will you finally decide to play it right? Most people won't. They'll hear this and think interesting and change nothing. But you're still here, which means maybe you're different. Maybe you're one of the few willing to see reality as it is, not as you wish it were. And if that's true, then everything changes from here. If this opened your eyes to something you've been avoiding, hit that subscribe button right now. Because here at the Hidden Codex, we don't stop at surface level motivation. We go deeper, into strategy, into power, into the truths they don't teach in schools. Next time, we'll explore the dark psychology of influence and how to protect yourself from those who would manipulate you. You don't want to miss that. Until then, stay awake, stay sharp, and remember, the game is already being played. The only question is whether you're playing it consciously or being played.